It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Divas That Care. My name is Candice Gish. If this is your very first time tuning into the Divas That Care, a huge welcome to you. We are now in our 14th year. We are listened to in over 30 countries around the world, and we just have a great time doing this. You know, I'm always so grateful when we have new listeners tuning into us, but I'm so grateful also to all the ones that have been following us, our tribe, for all these years. You know, it's just amazing. We have so many fantastic, interesting guests that come onto the network. We also have a variety of individuals that host programs, so I hope that you're able to check them out at divasthatcare.com. All right, we have a brand new, I would like to call him, I hope he doesn't mind, a new diva to our family, Shay Watson. And I'm so excited that I have the opportunity to chat with him today. So welcome to the show, Shay.
Thank you so much for having me, and feel free to call me a diva.
I love it.
I don't think I've ever been called that before.
You haven't been called a diva yet.
But I am happy to wear the title.
Awesome. Well, Shay, we're so excited that you've joined us today. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners today?
Sure. I am a producer and songwriter who lives in Nashville. Most of my work is out of LA because about 10 years ago, I transitioned to writing predominantly music for television and film. And I have been working in that area for a little over a decade now, but I moved to Nashville about 25 years ago, and I traveled for a few years as a recording artist, was briefly on a record label with a band that I was in. And during that time, I wrote for the band and also for a number of different artists that I'd met on the road and that I became friends with in the music industry. So my career took off as a songwriter. And I transitioned after I came off the road to focusing more on songwriting and production. And as the music industry changed, I changed with it and began to gain interest in writing television and film music. So I write a good bit of what we call score, which is just background instrumental tracks for various television shows and movies. And I also write a lot of songs that you hear on TV and film. I've written for over 40 different television shows and movies at this point in time.
Well, that is so exciting. That's really cool, actually. I love that. Can I ask you how you decided to get into music? I think that's really a fun thing to talk about because we don't have a lot of musicians that come on the program. So how did you get into that?
You know, I was brought up in a very musical family. Both of my brothers were musicians. They weren't professional musicians, but I was around music from the time that I was born. There was a piano in the house. There were brass instruments, guitars laying around. And for me, it was growing up in that atmosphere. I equate it to somewhat learning to talk. You learn to mumble before you learn to speak, before you learn to read. Well, that's how music was with me. I would crawl up and pluck at these instruments, pull myself up to the piano and make sound. So it was much like a language to me. And at some point, the sound started making sense and sounding good. And then I began in my elementary school years in the formal process of applying what I was hearing to being able to read and to write music. And there were a lot of really interesting things that happened to me along the way. For instance, a composer moved into our little hometown and took me under his wing. and taught me the art of composition. Also, an English teacher of mine in the area where I grew up, which was a very small town in South Alabama, North Florida. Her uncle was a very old composer arranger that lived in the New York area. He was the composer arranger for the president's own Marine Band, was friends with popular composers like Aaron Copland and Leonard Bernstein. She put me in touch with him. He invited me up. I spent a summer uh, in that atmosphere. So there were all these serendipitous things that happened to me that just kept pushing me toward music. So after I graduated high school, I went to school for music. I attended Troy University, and my emphasis there was on music education. I was very interested in being a teacher, and I began to work in the school systems after I graduated from college. But what I found myself doing was kind of a unique approach. I would find the talent levels of the students that I had, and I would write pieces toward their talent level and constantly inspire them to do better at their playing and what they were doing. And we wound up having some wonderful, great ensembles. But my focus merged more into writing, and I had a friend that had moved to Nashville and had been after me for years to move to Nashville. You really need to be at one of the music centers in the United States, which at the time was LA, Nashville, or New York. You knew if you were going to LA, you were going to be writing a pop style of music, and if you went to New York, the options there for me was both pop and Broadway. Nashville, there was country music. I at the time I wasn't a huge fan of country music, but there was that and pop going on. Nashville won out because of my friend being here, and also
Mhm.
because it wasn't that far from where I grew up. It's about 7 hours. I could be back visiting friends if I wanted to. So I moved up here to Nashville, and I spent a couple of months just getting my feet wet and learning the town. And I was very fortunate that early on, I met a publisher, music publisher, and he took me under his wing and began allowing me to, well, first of all, at that time, and even now, you have options when you move to a town like this. You're either going to be playing in a band, traveling on the road, uh, or working playing covers at one of the venues here in town for tourists that come in, or you're a singer songwriter, or you're working on the admin side of any of that stuff. I, of course, was a creator, so I was interested in the singer songwriting aspect of it. So at the time, I didn't get offered a publishing deal, but it was more so, we're going to allow you to be a fly on the wall. You can come to the publishing company and quietly sit and watch in on some of these sessions that our writers are having to see how they craft music, and in exchange you do grunt work. So that
Nice.
was my first exposure, was doing all the work that no one else wanted to do, but I was allowed to sit in writing session of established staff writers and also go into the recording studio to watch them during times when they were demoing songs that they had written. That was very fortunate, very educational for
Well,
me. But what had happened was I began to bring in my own songs, and this was within the first 6 months to a year of being there, and just kind of uh, politely pushing what I was doing onto the publisher. Hey, take a look at this. And it became very evident that very early on, I was very adaptable and was applying a good bit of what I was learning and turning in some really great songs. So within that first year, I was offered a publishing deal. Now, that sounds huge and big. It's it was a great stepping stone, but it really wasn't. What it came down to was I was the very young low guy on the totem pole, so I was given a stipend of, gosh, it was less than $500 a month. But you can use our name, you can use the recording studio, and you have to write X amount of songs. You have to meet a quota. And that was great for me. It was wonderful. It was a stepping stone that allowed me to write and to be around other writers and artists. And what that led to was meeting another very young writer there at the publishing company and putting together a group. We put together first a duo. We started going on the road, playing shows away from Nashville, because you learn very early on that most of your money as a traveling artist is made outside of Nashville. You're not going to make much in town because everyone is here pursuing music. So we went on the road, and while we were on the road, picked up another member of the band, another young member, and we formed a trio called 10 Mile Drive. And it was very successful. We were an acoustic pop band that played meaningful music, but we were all singers, and we decided to be unique with this, not do the traditional pop rock thing, but to play this music we were writing and doing to bluegrass instruments. So it was almost like if you combine the Beatles and the Beach Boys together, but put them on bluegrass instruments. That was us.
Ooh, I love
And
that.
we were out traveling, and the great thing about it was we were able to book ourselves to our demographic was huge. We had everyone from little children that were coming to see us to 90-year-olds. We were booking universities, festivals, fairs, and we wound up by the end of our second year together. We were playing, I think, 250 shows that second year, and then third and fourth year we stayed around that number. We were eventually offered a record deal because we were actually offered 5 record deals from competing labels, major labels, which doesn't happen for that short period of time that we were out on the road. And we wound up accepting one and going in to record our first album, but due to some legal issues and some other things that were going on, the album wound up being shelved, and we wound up walking away from the deal and disbanding the group. And there's a whole story there that I
Oh,
won't go
wow.
into. But I went back to at that time, I had a little bit more credentials under my belt with some song cuts that I had had, and also with the band, because we had some pretty decent media attention. That was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So we didn't have YouTube and video cameras following us around back then, but we did a good bit of shows in the towns that we were doing, early morning talk shows, evening talk shows, and various media events, magazine write-ups. But after we came off the road, I got back into songwriting, production, worked with a good bit of artists that I'd met on the road, and briefly formed another duo. And the second duo that I had put together is really what prompted me to look at getting into television and film. we had a song that I had written along with my co-writer Joe Nash called "Bring It On," which was somewhat our flagship song with our duo Watson and Nash. It wound up getting picked up by Fox Sports and ESPN, and so we licensed it to those networks. And I began to see a light went off here. There were several things that were happening in the music industry at the time. Streaming was just coming in to play on a major level, and also iTunes. So we had gone from this model to where we were selling a lot of full album merch down to a lot of revenue being taken off the table because people's mindsets were changing. They weren't buying physical product. They weren't buying CDs as much anymore. So there was this industry battle that was happening to where artist income was going down. But I tied into TV and film to where when we got that placement and it opened up the door for me to get some songs on other television shows, I began to see, wow, why am I chasing around writing a song for label projects that's going to make X amount when off of writing for television and film, I can be substantially further along income wise, and it can be somewhat more stable for me. So I made a pivot into doing television and film work, and it worked really well for me because growing up, as I mentioned, my background was composition. It was both classical and jazz, but I, of course, was a kid of the 70s and 80s. So I was into pop and rock music. So I had all these genres that I loved to listen to in music. It wasn't like you could pigeonhole me down to one thing. I equally was as passionate about pop music as I was about classical music or jazz. And I was also a multi-instrumentalist, played guitar, keyboards, and piano was my principal instrument in college. I majored in brass, and I also knew how to play strings. So I was able to create my own studio and to basically be a one-stop shop for these television shows and films. I'd write the music and then I'd play all of the instruments on it. And man, my turnaround was very quickly. So in brief, that's a little synopsis of me entering the music industry and then transitioning into television and film music.
You know what? I find that very fascinating. And I just want to kind of talk about a couple things here. I loved how you kept on saying the stepping stone for what you've been doing. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of people think that right away they're going to make it big. They don't realize that you have to kind of start at the bottom and work your way up. That's how we've all done it. I've done that throughout business all these years. I also
Yeah.
like when you were mentioning you made a huge shift in your business, and it's really paid off for you.
It has. And with the as you said, everyone starts at the bottom. I work with a lot of artists. I'm always around people who are in that age, usually find them coming town to try to make it big, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
from being age 19 to early 20s is typically what I encounter. And many of them get here, and from where they come from, they're big fish in a small pond. But suddenly you're thrown into this huge lake
Yeah.
and there are many minnows, and all of those minnows are just very talented and vying for those bigger spots. And I think where people get a lot of people get burnout early on because they think immediately I'm going to have success. And if
Yeah.
you're 2 years in, you've been hitting this grind and you haven't found that success, you can get very beat down. But you have to look at the bigger picture if this is truly for you. And you also have to realize that everyone's story is not the same. For
Exactly.
me, I had a vision of what I wanted to do, but so many things change. Everything from the industry and the way people purchase music, which is out of your control. You can't control that. When I came to town, I thought, oh, we're on this modeled where people are going to forever buy physical products. And the reason I say this is when I had my publishing deal, I had it at a time where people bought physical products. I wasn't necessarily writing the hit songs on these artist albums. I was writing what we call B-sides. But my B-sides were still making money because albums were selling. And every time uh, album sold because of the hit song, I made money off of that album. That's not how the industry works anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you're writing the hit song, your income off of any B-sides are going to be very low. And I say that just to say that that was a paradigm shift for me. Those things that are completely out of your control, you can't labor over them. You just have to make those pivots. And you have to remember, like I said, that your story is not like it's different from everyone else's. You should never compare. You shouldn't look at someone else's uh, route and where they've had success and say, okay, this is what I wanted. This is what I envisioned for myself. So now I'm a failure because I
I
didn't get it.
agree.
Maybe your route was slightly different or very different from theirs, but you can still make a great living if you take the time, move up the ranks, and be adaptable.
Because that's
Pivots.
exactly what I think, Shay, is that, you've seen a lot in the last 20, 30 years, and you were able to be adaptable. And that is so important because if you're not, then you don't make those transitions and you don't go with the flow of things and you're resistant to change. And I think as a musician, you had to be really part of that.
Yes, and even now, at this point, I'm having to be adaptable because I'm seeing a lot of what happened in the early 2000s and mid 2000s with our change from physical product to online streaming and to single sales. I'm seeing that happen within the TV and film industry where we are going to a streaming model. I love to ask people, how do you watch your favorite TV shows when you watch them? Most people are not sitting in front of a television like we used to do back in
So,
the day and waiting every week to watch, the next episode. That's not where we are. We're usually going through a streaming service. We're usually going through Hulu, Prime, Netflix, one of those services to watch. And the challenge that we're up against there is, particularly for me, one of the main shows that I write for is a daytime drama called The Young and the Restless, which is on CBS. And I got used to when you get used to writing for a show like that on a major network, CBS in ABC and NBC in our country being the three major networks, the pay's higher. But as we transition to streaming, a lot of the you're being paid off a streaming rate, which is relatively low. And my fear is, what is it going to look like, and what changes do I need to make to survive as we move, which I think will necessarily have to move throughout the next decade into an area of where you're not turning on the television to watch things live. Everything is streaming.
mhm.
So I ask myself, what are those changes that I need to make? So the changes and pivots are never ending, especially with the rate that technology is changing these days and the way people process information.
Yeah. So, Shade, have you surrounded yourself with a whole bunch of individuals that you brainstorm, you work together? Because I always find that I try to surround myself with people so that I can work with them and they can get ideas from them. Is that something that you've done?
I do. Uh, I do. I have uh, others that I've encountered that have that are either interested in working in the area that I do, which is a very different style of musical composition and production when you're focused a little bit more from TV and film. You want it to be adaptable, of course, to radio, but you follow a little different rules. And I don't want to get technical in the weeds about what those rules are, but I find people who are willing to try to find that middle ground because a lot of the artists that come to me are still chasing I wouldn't say necessarily being heard on the radio, but model of a radio standard song. And so there has to be that adaptability to say, hey, this works over in the area of radio and streaming, but not necessarily in the area of TV and film. And TV and film is also an area that provides a lot of exposure for artists. So you have to know which songs are going to, down from a genre perspective and a feel perspective, be used by music supervisors, those that are the gatekeepers in the television and film world. So I look for artists that are adaptable, that are interested in working in that area. I also look for composers and songwriters, singers, songwriters, or some songwriters themselves who are interested in working in that area. And also the other area, which is not thought of as much by many in this town, is I also try to have friends that are in the tech world that
That's
can
smart.
that can
Yeah.
keep me abreast on what uh, changes are coming, because I always like to look behind the scenes to what are these technology changes that are coming, because technology dictates so much of what we do. You can spend all your time up here focusing on the creative area of your
Mhm.
craft and creating wonderful things, but if you're not up on how you're going to expose that, or what changes are going to happen, what are the biggest platforms going to be that you can gain exposure, then then you run the risk of being left behind.
Yes. How important is it to be very diverse then in the music industry and what you're doing? Do you put all your eggs into one basket, or are you focusing on having your hand into a lot of different pies kind of thing? And is that something that you kind of share with others?
Yes, I do focus on putting my hands into a lot of different things. It's different for different individuals. I in the past, I have gone through phases where I shift my eggs to one basket, and my wife actually reminds me, "Hey, you may not be wanting to focus all your time on this show or this show that you're doing." Which I've done before. I've hit like three successful shows that would use me daily, and then I'd start exclusively riding over that area and kind of neglecting in other areas. But you do have to be diverse. You have to spread it out. You have to be constantly taking meetings, meeting new people, because there's so much change that happens at a very rapid pace. And it can be very tiring, I will say, when you don't have a team around you.
Yeah.
But I try to be diverse. I try to find a diverse team that is around me. And something else, this is kind of a side note. I mentioned to you before that I work with a lot of people who are in their early 20s. I try to remind myself to step back and not to be the guy always making the calls. Even though I'm the producer who sets the stage and leads these sessions and kind of nudges in certain areas, but I try my best to learn from the younger artists and songwriters that I'm working with. That's very important to me, and I always learn something from different artists and songwriters
Mm.
that I work with. They bring something fresh and new and unique and energetic to the
Yes.
table that I wind up losing because I can often get into a rut of doing what I know works
Yeah.
and neglecting finding that new creative spark that may take me into a different area.
Oh, I love that. How important is it in your life to balance things? With your family, with your friends? Is it a hard thing to do, or do you really focus on that?
I have to focus on it. It is very hard. My wife, she is very understanding of me and my time, and she helps me to try to protect my time and to put aside family time. I've been married for this will be 24 years this year, and we waited so long to start family. I have a son who is 7 and a daughter who is 9 years old. She turns 10 at the end of next month. So we waited for a good bit of time till I was off the road
Yep.
to have a family. And now that we do have a family, it becomes very, very difficult balancing that family time, work time, especially in the area of television and film, because often I will get a call um, for a like, hey Shay, tomorrow we're running with a scene and we realized that the song we had temped in for this or the piece of music we had temped in, all the rights weren't approved from another writer, so we're having to pull it and we need you to compose and create for this scene that has to be locked tomorrow. So that means, I've got to compose, record all of these parts or call friends over, well, colleagues. All of my colleagues are friends, to stay up and get this thing done for the next day. So that's where it gets difficult. And
Yeah.
I always joke that sometimes I'll go through a week and I'll be just writing for my regular uh, stuff that I have going out the door, and I'll get a call from someone who's finishing logging a scene on a Hallmark or a Lifetime movie, and it'll be like 5 o'clock on a Friday, and I try to
Oh
protect my
no.
like crazy. I try to once 4 o'clock hits on Friday, we shut everything off and it's family and barbecues and soccers and watching a movie and pizza on the weekend until Monday when we're back into the work week. But
That's awesome.
oftentimes, right there at the end of the day on Friday, I'll get a call, and it's always some rush job that they need it by Monday, and it's always for a big amount of money. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, that's a hard
You're
thing.
you're going to have to sacrifice, and but what I try to do for the trade-off there is do the movie night, do the pizza night, then wait till everybody goes to bed, and then go back into the studio at about 10 and work until sometime in the wee hours of the morning, and then grab moments here and there. So it can get very tiring. There is balance to be found, and but sometimes there are exceptions where you're just not going to find that balance.
Oh, I love that. And you know what? And they grow up so fast. I started this program 14 years ago, and I am a mother of 4 girls. So this is why it's
Oh,
called the
wow.
Divas That Care, because of my daughters. And you know what? I understand completely, because when they're young, you just want to spend so much time, and you gotta do that, because as they get older, it's more of a challenge to be able to do that. So I love what you're doing, Shay.
Well, the other fortunate thing with me is the home that we have. I have my own studio, and it's here on the grounds of our home. So I can walk out of my house directly into my studio. And so the kids can often, when I don't have clients that are here riding with me, they'll often just come into the studio and sit and be here with me.
Aw.
They love music too. My son, he's 7, he's playing drums, and he wanted to play drums, but I also required him, hey, if you're going to play drums, you need to learn a tonal instrument.
Yep.
Also, so you need to be taking piano lessons from me. So we do piano lessons
Oh, that's
every week
fantastic.
in addition drums. And my daughter, she does piano, and she's getting into singing a little bit more now. Matter of fact, I just had them about a week ago sing on a movie that I was working on. I needed a cappella children's choir, so I got
Oh, I
them
love that.
few of their friends that are musical at that age and brought them in and recorded them. So I try to involve them occasionally,
Yep.
they love it.
Well, your family jam sessions must be fun.
They can be.
So, Shay, what kind of inspiration, what kind of things can you give our list today?
Try out different things. If you're a performer, and I'll just hit this in different areas. As a performer, bloom where you're planted first. Find like if you're in a small town and you're wanting to perform at every local and regional event that you can and hone your craft and build from there. That's probably one of the best things that I could tell you to do immediately. And as you build uh, in learning your craft as a performer, you may decide, hey, I want to move to Nashville or LA or New York, or Atlanta now has a big scene, or Miami. You may decide, or you may uh realize I have become a huge regional artist, singer-songwriter who's making a great living in this area. So don't feel like you've got to have everything immediately. Bloom where you're planted. As a songwriter, if you're not a performer and if you are a songwriter, creator, find where the top music that you're writing is needed. Uh, you may find that it works well with TV and film. You may find that it works well with uh, writing background tracks for things that are produced for content creators online. Link up with individuals, do collaborations with online content creators. If you write more standard songs, pitch towards other artists and don't focus on just the huge names. Ask yourself, where is music needed? Where can I fill a spot? Where can I provide a need? And listen to what that need is also. And I think doors will open for you, and take those pivots when those doors are opened for you in those areas.
I really love that advice. Thank you so much, Shay.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. How can our listeners find you? How can they get a hold of you? If they want to
I,
work with you, if they want to listen to what you've been doing, how can they do that?
sure. I'm very active on social media. Uh, my Instagram is Shay_Watson_music producer, or you can just type in Shay Watson in the search, and you'll probably see a picture of me and a description. I'm very active on Instagram. I'm probably most active there. I'm also on Twitter as Shay Watson Music. I'm on Facebook as The Real Shay Watson. And I also have a website, shaywatson.com. And also, I have to preface that you spell Shay, ShaywAtson. I know there are a number of different ways of spelling Shay, but you can find me at any of those, shaywatson.com, or on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm probably most active on Instagram if you're going the social media route to find me, but you can also Google me and there are links that will put you in touch to me, in touch with me. But I'm always looking for new collaborators and new talent. So I welcome people to contact me. The only thing that I ask is, I look for to work with people who are low maintenance at this point in my life. Uh, Artists and songwriters are notorious for being high maintenance people. We have quirky personalities, but I am a very low maintenance person myself. I try to be very calm and adaptive and accommodating. And so I look for that in other people that I work with.
That is fantastic. And for all of our listeners, I will be posting all of Shay's information on all of our social media so that you'll be able just to click on that too. So that's great. So, Shay, what is happening in the future? Do you have any big plans for anything that you'd love to share with our listeners?
Oh yes, I have a number of things that are going on right now. There's a band. One of my, I always talk about this. A few years ago, I started writing and working with a band that I was a fan of when I was in college, Blessed Union of Souls. They were a hit band. They had like 8 top 40 hits back in the day, and you'd probably know a few of them. I believe Hey Leonardo, She Likes Me, For Me. They had a huge list. Well, I started writing with the band Blessed Union of Souls about 7 years ago, and we're constantly turning out new music. I wound up producing uh, a number of their singles. And so we're working on new music together. And I play and produce the music, co-write the music with their lead singer, and also I am working on a couple of movies right now, which has come through a friend of mine, Cherish Lee. Cherish is the daughter of actress Charlene Tilton, who was a very huge icon in the 80s. She was on the show Dallas, and then continued acting through the years, and is a movie producer, actress, works behind the scenes. And I became friends with her daughter, Cherish. She was also an actress and singer songwriter. And we are working, we just finished a movie that they shot, titled to be announced later, but we have 3 or 4 songs in that movie. I also did a movie with them, a, a Unicorn for Christmas, which was a Christmas movie that we did, where we wrote the intro and the ending credit song for that movie. And we've got another movie coming up that I'm beginning to work on. So that's very fun. And there are a few different shows. I'm working on a HBO show providing some background detective type ish music for that. But you can watch my social medias for announcements of the shows. I can't really announce the titles of some of the movies and shows
No.
now because they're in production and they love to keep that stuff under wraps. There's a new big Netflix series that I just did music for that's coming out, but I'll be announcing all that, and it'll be hitting very soon. So that's some really cool stuff that's coming up.
Oh my
At
gosh,
least
that's
it's cool for
exciting.
me.
Yeah. Well, Shay, I had such a great time chatting with you today. I hope that you'll come back on the Divas That Care. I would
I
love
would
to have
absolutely love
more.
to.
Oh, it would be so much fun having another conversation with you.
Anytime. Love
Oh,
it. And I love what you're doing also. You do a wonderful job. it's I listened down, looked down the list of the other podcast episodes you had, and I just wanted to say, great job. I really believe in what you're doing. It's a wonderful thing, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on it.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And it was honestly my pleasure. I'm loving getting to get to know you, and I can't wait to be doing some more stuff in the future.
Same here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And to all of our amazing listeners, thank you so much for being a part of our tribe for the last 14 years. We're so thankful to each and every one of you. We're doing so many great things out there. We have a lot of our anthologies now. Make sure you go check those out too, because our proceeds go to charities. So we want to make sure that you guys are always looking for that. And we have a podcast journal so that you guys can keep track of all of the amazing shows, not only on the Divas That Care network, but on all the other podcasts out there, because we want to support as many of these individuals as we can. So thank you so much to Shay. Thank you to all of our listeners. And please remember to do something kind. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.